By the way, it was just at this period that their subjectively favorite subjects for observation and study were gradually formed in each of my sons. Namely, your father liked to observe and study the mutual influence and maintenance of cosmic concentrations situated in the spheres nearest to the prime source, the most holy Sun Absolute. And your uncle Tuilan manifested an interest in the observations on the planet Earth, and in the process which proceeded on it of the being existence of the three-brained beings who have interested you. When I happened to be occupied with something else, I often commissioned him to keep note of all the changes which proceeded there. When my sons were prepared to leave the planet Mars forever, your uncle Tuilan begged me to keep him periodically informed of my observations of the Earth beings, which I of course promised to do. And they flew away from there to the center, nearer to our Lord. When they arrived there, and it proved that they were well informed concerning the position of cosmic concentrations and their properties and particularities, and also that they were practically versed in the calculations of the totality of the reciprocal influences, then, thanks to all this, they were immediately assigned to the said responsible duties. And so, when I learned of the permanent place of their existence and to which posts they were found worthy, I from then on, according to my promise, sent every quarter of our year to Tuilan an exact copy of all my written summaries of those observations which I continued to make. Rather many years passed since the time I began to send Tuilan these etherograms, and I personally did not know what became of them, until I received information about these same turbulent events on the planet Purgatory. It transpired that the great governor of the holy planet Purgatory, his all-quarters maintainer, the arch-cherub Helkmatios, having once by chance learned that one of the assistants of the governor of the etherogram station, Tuilan, periodically received from the solar system ores very long etherograms from his father, evinced a desire to become acquainted with their contents. And having become acquainted with them, he not only became interested in them himself, but even commanded your uncle Tuilan always to reproduce the contents of these etherograms in the common planetary Tuluch-Terzenek, so that some of the higher being bodies dwelling on the holy planet might, if they wished for a rest, be informed of the psyche of those peculiar three-brained beings breeding on one of the very remote corners of the megalocosmos. Your uncle, Tuilan, afterwards always did so. Whenever he received etherograms from me, he always reproduced their contents in the common planetary Tuluch-Terzenek. And in this way, all those righteous souls dwelling on the holy planet were kept informed of all my observations and investigations of everything concerning their strange psyches. From then on, certain of the righteous higher being bodies there on the holy planet not only began to follow all of my observations very attentively, but they also began to ponder on the strangeness of their psyche. The results of the pondering of the blissful higher being bodies was that they began to understand that something was wrong with the psyche of the three-brained beings of that planet Earth. And they even discerned something suspicious in the cause of this something wrong. And ultimately, many of them began to be seriously indignant at what first seemed to them an injustice coming, as it were, from above. The more these indignant righteous souls shared their impressions with others, the greater their number gradually increased, so that everywhere in the Zarawaris on the holy planet, they thought and deliberated among themselves only about this. The result of it all was that all the inhabitants of the holy planet chose 50 righteous souls from among their number to investigate jointly and to find out the true reason why such an absurdity exists in the psyche of the three-brained beings of that planet Earth, which makes the self-perfecting impossible for that higher being part, which for various reasons sometimes arises also in certain of them. These chosen 50 religious souls were just those who were already worthy to be candidates for going to the most holy source of everything existing. Then, even his all-quarters maintainer, the arch-cherub Helkgamatios, the governor of the holy planet, not only sanctioned the choice of these 50 blissful souls, but also by his own all-gracious decision expressed a desire to help them in every way in the fulfillment of their undertaking. And so, my boy, when these 50 candidates for the Sun Absolute began their investigations, then after long and complicated researches, it became clear to them that the fundamental cause of the whole abnormality of the psyche of the three-brained beings arising on this planet was that a very definite notion arose and began to exist, that outside the essence of beings, as it were, there are two diametrically opposite factors, the sources of good and the sources of evil, which are just the instigators for all their good and bad manifestations. It was then established by them that this universally disseminated maleficent idea, the data for which gradually became crystallized in each of them during their formation into preparatory age, already dominates their common psyche at their responsible existence and becomes, on the one hand, a tranquilizer and justifier of all their manifestations, and on the other hand, the fundamental impeding factor for the possibility which arises in certain of them for the self-perfecting of their higher being parts. When the righteous dwellers on the holy planet had made all this clear to themselves, they began to consider and deliberate among themselves how to find a way out of the situation, and what they could do from their side. As it was related to me, they began to arrange meetings and conferences everywhere in Zaruaris to try, by collective effort, to arrive at some decision. And after long deliberations and complicated what are called ballots by the righteous souls of single Zaruaris, as well as by different Zaruaris, the following resolution was ultimately almost unanimously carried. First of all, to lay a petition at the feet of our Maker-Creator, that He, in His providence, should send to the three-brained beings of the planet Earth a messenger from above, with data corresponding to such a reason as could on the spot find a possibility of uprooting this maleficent idea. And secondly, in view of the fact that the actualization on the surface of this planet of such a maleficent idea was, and until now is, the fundamental cause of all the terrifying misfortune for the sacred higher being parts arising there, to venture with contrition to request our common Father not to allow the higher being part of that terrestrial three-brained being who was the cause of the arising there of a maleficent idea to be taken on the holy planet, even if this higher being body is perfected to the required gradation of sacred reason, but to